Thank you for listening to The Lawyer's Daughter. This is Jen Carroll, and this podcast does not have any video. I know I'm on YouTube, but that doesn't matter. I really appreciate you listening to the podcast here. Let's go get started. My friends, it is August 21st, and today I'm rebooting the podcast. What does that mean, Jen? That sounds weird. Well, I thought about this a lot last night, and I thought about it actually all night long. It seems like I've been thinking about this so much. But the reality is that I did the podcast because I believe a lot of people don't know where to find information they need. That's not political, but just how to do it. Like, what is this? Why is this important? Or why should I do this thing? So when I initially conceived of the podcast, 100 Days Campaign Companion, I wanted to be a place, especially for women, because I don't know, I relate to women really well, and I have a lot of women friends, and well, even during the murder stuff, it was all about the power of women. So it's been one of my cause celebs as my, I didn't even say that right. That's embarrassing. Don't ever ask me to say things in other languages, because according to my daughter, I just humiliate myself. But my reason for caring about women and wanting them to get involved is I think women often are relied upon to do a lot of this work, but don't get recognized and then don't have the kind of support they need. And I was thinking specifically when I started the podcast, there may be a lot of people who want to be involved in politics, but they live in a red state or they live around a lot of Trump supporters and they just don't know how to engage without it being drama. And none of us need any more drama. If anything, that's what we're trying to get rid of in our lives, is the drama. So I'm recasting and rebooting the podcast because last night made me very clear. The speeches last night, if you did not watch, they were about the best speeches I have seen. And I thought the speeches on Monday were good. But last night was a class in rhetorical brilliance. And everybody that knows I love rhetoric, like, it was just the most amazing thing. But really, and let me tell you, really the linchpin that made me change. But here's why I'm changing. So the podcast is now, it's time to do something. Because guess what? That's what Michelle Obama asked us to do. She said, do something. She said, basically, without, I'm misquoting her, but basically, don't bitch, don't moan, don't complain, do something. People are going to be jerks. Bad things are going to happen. You're going to get trolled. Let it go. Just do something positive. Move us forward. So here's the deal. I'm going to remain inclusive in this podcast because to me, the audience for this podcast is anybody who wants to fight for our democracy. That's really what you're listening to on this podcast, is how to fight for our democracy. And in the context of that, I'm going to bring you things like how it worked in the past, so you can kind of understand the context. I'm going to tell you about the political user experience and how you do things in politics that are different than how we do it in regular life. So here's how it works. Sometimes you just want to understand the user experience. I'm going to talk about ways to get involved and how you can get involved and who's doing it and what their results are. I'm going to try to build some excitement. And I'm also going to bring you a little bit about the roles in our democracy, especially the big ones, the three branches, the Department of Justice, things about our norms, things that are what are standard fare in a democracy that we have really effed around with over the last 10 years. So this is our chance and my chance. So if you don't know me and haven't met me, I am a compulsive learner, and I studied marketing and I studied rhetoric, but I happen to also be a coach, not a coach like Walz, but a coach like Walz in that I care about how you proceed. But during the trial, I decided to go back to life coach school, which was great. It was like another master's degree in communications. And I also happened to be involved in lots of silly things that, as a woman, like running a school and parenting and messing with complicated teenagers and all kinds of stuff that helps me understand and interpret what's going on. And the last thing is that I grew up in politics. And because I grew up in politics, in a weird way, it turns out the other night when Kamala's relative or somebody close to her was speaking, and she said she grew up on, now I'm going to forget it, Bancroft in San Leandro, which is hilarious because the woman I talk about, my college roommate and my Creole family, live on 198th Street, right around the corner from Bancroft. I have always felt like Kamala Harris because my dad's interest in becoming a senator, and he knew the Browns, Jerry and Jerry Sr. He knew the Browns. He was all involved then. And had he not been murdered, I very likely would have been part of his campaigns and as he ran for senator. I'm sure I would have been on the team because I was born for this. This is what I love messaging. I love all this stuff. So so Kamala has always been the woman I've paced myself with. And y'all have one of these. I'm sure you do. There's someone kind of out there in the world that you go, God, I should be doing as well as they are. I'm a lot like her. Now, mind you, I appreciate the incredible narcissism I am possessing right now to think I'm like her. I don't in that way. I'm not saying I have her brain. Not at all. What I'm saying is, but for a weird ass murder that happened in my past, I might have been hanging out on her campaign right now. So I feel really attached. That's what I'm saying. Okay. So what's next? Now we have this new podcast. Yeah, Jay, thank you. Thank you, Jen. This is so great. But we're doing this now. I'm going to be very clear. I am doing this to help elect Harris and Walz because it's imperative. It's imperative for our survival. It's imperative for our children. It's imperative because hate just cannot win. And everything that was mentioned last night is what makes us human and brings us together. And if you didn't listen, I encourage you to. They are not very long speeches, and they are really well delivered. So it doesn't feel like you're at a boring speech. It feels like somebody's telling you a really interesting story. And it also encourages you to use your head and think about what's being said. And like I said, it resonated with me all night. And I apologize for the pod being late today, but I was going to do this reboot. And then I also wanted to look at the 3 speeches a little bit critically. That took a bit of time. So don't tell my boss, but I didn't do any work today. Didn't do any work today. Okay. And the show starts in a few minutes. So I've got to hurry. So here's what we're going to do on this podcast. We're going to continue. I hope you continue to listen. I hope you tell your friends. I hope that this becomes a thing that encourages you to stay and participate in the joy. And it's really important because I used to use the word joy before it became trendy. Like I used it 3 months ago. Joy's been a big thing in my family because my family doesn't know how to recognize it very well. So I've really been trying to work on my family members to understand joy and like drink it in when it happens because it's hard. Sometimes joy is a little bit of work to find. But my thing is I'm all about the joy. And the joy to me in this process and what's happening is really around 3 things. One is the most core to our democracy: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I didn't know this, but I decided to go find. I'm like, wait, what are we guaranteed as citizens? Like, what is our guarantee? And by the way, I'm going to do a podcast on citizenship because I had no idea how hard we make it on immigrants to achieve citizenship, and I bet we suck. Those of us who have citizenship. I bet we didn't know these were our responsibilities as citizens. There are responsibilities, but I'm not doing that podcast today. Anyway, on January 9th, 1790, in the way back, George Washington said the establishment of our new government seemed to be the last great experiment for promoting human happiness. Guess what? That's where we get America's The Great Experiment, and it's predicated on happiness. And I have not heard one person from the GOP focusing on this statement. The government is here. The great experiment is designed to promote human happiness. We deserve happiness. Doesn't mean that we don't have to work hard. Doesn't mean there's going to be shitty days. Doesn't mean there's going to be things that go wrong or somebody gets sick or my mom dies. Like none of that doesn't matter. That's going to happen. But fundamentally, we deserve to be in a country where we're trying to make each other happy. I know that sounds like a stretch right now, but we used to kind of do it. Not all the time, and there were people who were left out. It's not perfect, but that's the point. We're going to keep making it better. So the next big value for me in joy is teamwork. And that means how that's an inclusive leadership model. And we're going to talk about leadership too, because I think it's important to understand the role of leadership and good leaders and bad leaders and leadership styles. And what I look for in leadership as a former leader myself, but in business, is a top-down approach, meaning we're clear about what the priorities and the vision are, a clear role for the bottom up. I understand how I fit in this model and what I can do to contribute to it. And then coalition building in the center. Unfortunately, that includes usually political action committees and more. And there's a podcast on about that we've already done. But they still have a role. Special interests, all those folks, non-government organizations, they still have a role in coalition building. So that's top down with vision, bottom up with commitment and resolution to do it, and coalition in the middle to find out what's going to be the best solution to work for the most people and not just the corporations. That was last part was me, because I just cannot stand that capitalists are taking over everything. But I'm not a communist, so there. No, I'm just a damn American who wants it to work. So the last thing I want to do in this podcast is encourage civic engagement. I keep saying civil and civic, and that's not passing me up as that is a Freudian slip I keep making. Civil civic engagement. How about I just add it all together? So we can all participate in the election. We can all learn about the issues, and we can all work to preserve our democracy. But we need to stand up and fight when oppression is happening. It matters. It matters when books are being taken from a library, or we don't have enough rules to keep our schools safe from guns, or when women's health care is causing women to die, or having a healthy law-abiding Supreme Court so they don't have to worry about the corruption at the highest levels of our government. Those are the things that we have to work together to change and heal. So the last thing, of course, is there is this idea of helping one another. And that's last night. That's what Michelle Obama really got to. Her speech came out. She has some meta messages, and I'll talk to you in a minute. But the thing that got me last night was when she just like crawled into my soul. She came out and opened with, I don't know if I can do this because I might start crying. She said it eloquently, but basically that's what she said, because her mom just died. And of course, my mom just died in April, and I'm still like not doing great, right? So she had me at that moment about her mom, but then it's what she said, guys. And this is our soul for so many of us. For so many of us in the vast middle class, we grew up with these values. And here's what Michelle said. My mom believed that all children, all people have value. I'm going to start crying. My mom believed that all children, all people have value, that anyone can succeed if given the opportunity. She and my father didn't aspire to be wealthy. They were suspicious of those who took more than they needed. Oh God, I can't even tell you. There was just a scene like this where somebody took more than they needed. It went around viral, and I was like, why do people do this? It's parents who let the kids take all the candy out of the bowl on the dish. Like, don't do that. It is suspicious when people take more than they need. That just resonated so hard with me. My mother and my parents understood that it wasn't enough for their kids to thrive if everyone around us was drowning. Is this not true? Was this not how you grew up? Like, you would lend a hand, you would help out. Your parents would take over a casserole, or you'd go help somebody pack if they had to move. Like, that's what happened. We helped each other. And it wasn't even, I don't even think it was a thing. I think you just did it. Like, oh yeah, you're doing that today. I'll be right over. Like, it wasn't even a thing. You didn't have to include a calendar invite and text him to confirm and all this other stuff. We just like meandered around our neighborhoods and did it. So sorry, she goes on. I might have to do this as a 2-part podcast, because I think there's no point in me going into the speeches today. This is already going long, and I'm feeling so emotional. I'm so moved by this. Okay. She goes on and says, my mother volunteered at the local school. She always looked for the other kids on our block. She was glad to do the thankless, unglamorous work that for generations has strengthened the fabric of this nation. Okay, I'm tearing me up again, because there you go. You look out for the kids. I've been adopted by my neighbors, which has made my heart swell. I think I'm Auntie Jen. They just moved in. They've got young kids, and I used to work in preschool, and I love kids so much. I think they're just amazing. I love their brains. I like how they're their own little individual humans, but I always look out for them. I can't help it. I am just one of those women. Probably there are men too, but it's weirder for the men. I'm sorry, it shouldn't be weirder for you. But I just am always aware of where the kids are and who's doing what and how the power struggle's going and how well they're playing. And I love asking them what's their idea. And that's a whole other thing I do. But that idea, I guess my relationship with the kids next door bloomed. I came over for dinner, and the parents are like, these children love you. And the thing is, just because I care about them, I'm interested in them. So, okay, that tore me up too. Like, we looked out for each other and our kids and each other's kids. She goes on, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's just, I'm almost done here. The belief that if you do unto others, if you love thy neighbor, if you work and scrape and sacrifice, it will pay off. Not for you, then maybe for your children or your grandchildren. Those values have been passed on through family farms and factory towns. I'm still going to cry. Through tree-lined suburbs and crowded tenements. through prayer groups in the National Guard units and social studies classrooms. That's all I took as her part of her speech. But in some ways, I feel like this podcast is a social studies classroom because I just want to bring the excitement. I get so damned stupid excited about America and democracy and politics and how this works and how leadership works and how it's a representative government. And the idea that this is all tied together with caring about each other and lifting each other up. And that she just crawled to my soul. I don't know how else to say it. She just moved into my body and possessed me because it's all my values. It's everything I care about. And I don't know how somebody can't have these values. I guess that's, that it's easy to say, I believe in this, but it's really interesting to say, I don't believe in this. It would mean you don't believe that children or all people have value. So you don't believe everybody has value. You don't believe that you need to help out or take. You don't believe that what's on the table means you get to take as much as you want, even if other people don't eat. How can you believe in that? Like, I eat first. That's a hard one to believe in. It's hard to believe in a value that says, I don't care what's happening to those children over there. As long as I'm fine, that's all that matters. I just can't imagine. I don't know how people can believe that volunteering is a bad idea and helping out your community is a bad thing to do. How can you not believe in volunteering and helping out? And volunteering, I'm not saying you have to go somewhere and do something. Volunteering is anything. Volunteering is making phone calls or participating in a conversation or attending a meeting or running a group or just discussing it with the people you know who don't understand the issue. Volunteering is lots of things. So volunteering is holding babies in the NICU and volunteering is sitting with someone who's dying in the hospital. There's just so many ways to be part of your community. And then I can't believe that there are people who would disagree with, if you love thy neighbor, that it's wrong to love thy neighbor, that it's wrong to hurt, that you believe it's okay to hurt others, but they can't hurt you. Like, that's just all twisted. I can't even make the negative argument there. So this is what the podcast is going to be. I'm fired up. I'm vamping on a day. Like, I'm just going to not do the speech. I was going to do Doug and Michelle's and Brock's speeches, but I'll keep it. We can look at that when it's a little more quiet. And actually, I just was like, these still aren't good enough. I want to include more examples because if you want to learn about speeches, it's a really good opportunity to learn about speeches. I probably won't do this, even though I know we're going to have good speeches again tonight. I think Mayor Pete's going to be on. I probably won't do it again until we get to Kamala's acceptance speech. I think tonight is Tim Walz. I might do Tim Walz and Kamala because I'd like to compare them to the GOP in terms of again, not good or bad, but mostly in terms of the ideas and content and styles. I think it's very interesting to look at it rhetorically and see the differences in those things. So I'll come back to these speeches. They won't be left behind. I just mostly want you to tune in, time your dinner. If you didn't see the roll call last night, which was the most amazing roll call. So for those of you that don't know, the roll call is when each state's set of delegates, so their unit, their squad, the state squads, all come together and report to the secretary of the convention, to the secretary of the DNC, who their delegates are for. Now, in the older days, there could sometimes be, I can't even think back to who it would be, but you would have maybe two people who want to be president. So it could be quite contentious. And there would have been a lot of, what is that called? Deal trading, trading going on before the speeches, before the voting, the roll call last night to try to align delegates. But in this case, we essentially have 100% with a few people who decided to just register their vote as present. And I'm not really sure what their issues are, but that's okay. They get to do what they did. It doesn't affect a darn thing. But it also lets them express their point of view. If they could express it present, it doesn't really express a point of view. But so they do that roll call. But what happened with the roll call was the most amazing good time. My neighbors must think I'm crazy because I'm home by myself, right? And I've got the windows open because it's hot right now in Santa Cruz. And I am losing my mind with roll call because of the music. So I'm dancing like a fool because if I hear music, I start dancing. It's kind of a personality flaw. And then little John comes in for Georgia and I'm done. I'm dancing so hard. I I cannot believe how fired up everybody is, and that Georgia delivered. Like I read today, it was a super, super, super secret, which means in 4 years, I have a feeling there's going to be some state competitions. Some of the states did roll out some secrets. That was kind of cool. Secret guests, secret cameos in the shots. But what the DJ, I think it's DJ Cassidy, he mixed the music so well. And he talked today with Jen Psaki, or last night maybe with Jen Psaki, about how it needed to be balanced. He wanted to balance old and new, historical music with current music. He wanted to balance genres. He wanted to balance everything he could possibly balance, mood, everything he could possibly balance in the music to reflect America. And it was, I'm going to just say it like an old timer, it was lit. It was lit. That's all it was. That roll call and that jam and that party and that fun was so good. And I don't know how they're going to top it. They have raised the bar so high. So those are things to go back and watch if you didn't watch them. Roll call, you mostly need to have on just like, you just kind of have it, let it wash over. You don't have to really closely watch it. The speeches, yeah, you should sit down and really watch. So thank you for joining the podcast and listening today. Please share this with your Harris campaign friends who want to be motivated and learn fun stuff along the way, so they can they can talk like a smarty pants when they're out volunteering. And I will be back tomorrow with more Let's Go Watch a Convention. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Make sure you subscribe and rate, and I'll be back with another episode really soon.